Hey gang, it is Wednesday, April 30th, 2025, and as you know, I have this RV that we've been using for trips and helping people out with their Mustang projects when we can. And I've been wanting to get a car cover or an RV cover over it for quite a while now, and it finally showed up this morning. Now, this has taken a while. I went through Allen's factory outlet and they had promised me a 90-day turn window or turn time. It's been over 100 days, but I'm glad that it finally showed up, and these installers are going to come and put this in. I have my site prepped over here that I've shown before, and they're going to get set up and unload and get started on putting together the RV cover. So I'm going to film some of this. We're going to see how it goes. We're going to talk over some of the stuff we want to do, but that's where it's going to end up.
So in this sequence, they're laying out the base plates, and these sections are 25 feet long, and then there is another section that is 10 feet long. So what they have to do is put a sleeve inside of each section to put it together. Then they put screws through it. Now here they're pre-assembling the bows, and again this has a sleeve that goes inside of the bow, and he's setting each one of those in there, and it looks like I think he's putting 2 screws in each one of those blocks. He's doing the same thing on the opposite side. And they've also done a bunch of measuring on these things. So I think what they're doing is identifying where they're going to be adding screws later on, and it just makes it easier to do it while it's all laid out here on the ground. So once they get those measurements taken care of, they start assembling the legs to the bow pieces. And I think they put a couple screws in each side, so there's like 2 on the leg and 2 on the bow. And then here he is putting the other ones together, and you can see the teamwork here. You can't complain about how they have a process, and they know how to work together and make this happen. Here they're putting in the cross corner pieces, I guess is what you want to call those. Those go up in the corner of the bow, and then they put screws in along with those. And there's a center piece that goes in that they also put the screws in. And so they assemble each one of these bows, or leg assemblies. So you can see here there's 5. Whenever they finish up here, there's 5 assemblies that they put together, and a nice teamwork. They know exactly what they're doing, and they're making it happen pretty quickly. So they put in these other screws, and then in the next series they connect the legs or the extra base plate piece on. So you can see they're running screws into those pieces. And then I had a marker or a post in the ground towards the back that I had him set that to as how I wanted it. Now here, there is a power line running right underneath this thing, and I had it marked by 811 a good while ago, and I kept track of that. I actually did a video on my own that I kept on my phone that I marked where the power line was, and I did measurements off of certain parts of my driveway. So where the split seam is on the driveway and the grass there, I made sure to have a dedicated measurement just in case we needed to verify that. Now here they're setting the width of the base plates, and I mentioned it later on. I didn't realize till afterwards that the width is on the outside, so it's at 12 feet on the outside of those legs. They're running stakes in the ground, and that's to keep stuff from moving, and they do a crisscross measurement to make sure they're square. So always a good idea. And then from there, I look for a block here. I went and found one cement block that I had so they could use it back here in the corner. That was probably the lowest part of the base plate, let's say. So as we're discussing this, I help them out with the measurements, make sure that they're able to get everything in the right place. And he's driving stakes in the ground to keep everything square so it doesn't move around. There's also augered in pieces that will act as anchors for like a windstorm, to keep it from pulling up. And here they start the first assembly of the legs. And again, teamwork. Whenever you're doing this sort of thing, if you don't have these measurements right, you're going to struggle with this. So I appreciate that they're building this, because I know for me to have me and maybe a friend or somebody help me, it would have taken a bit more effort just because we hadn't done it before. After watching this, I feel like I could probably build one of these, but I still don't really want to because of climbing up on the ladders and setting all the tin work on top. Now you'll see they have 5 legs here, and that is a problem. They were supposed to have 8 legs, and apparently there was some conflict with whoever loads the kits on the trailers. He's discussing with me the limbs, and I'm going to take care of those limbs, get them out of the way so that they're not interfering with the installation of the sheet metal pieces. Now this becomes an ongoing thing here, because they need to go figure out how to get new bows to complete the rest of the legs. So more on that in just a minute. So the younger worker was using the post hole digger, and he was being cautious with where he was digging. They could have put these anchors on the inside or the outside of the base pieces, and this one is on the inside to avoid the power line. If you look towards the front, you'll see a dark spot, and that is where the anchor is on the outside of the leg. So the main leader, he got the auger machine or auger running again and bored out the holes for the auger anchors. And these things, you could either crank them in by hand, or you could make the machine do the work and you set them in place and then backfill them with dirt, and that's to keep it from blowing away in a windstorm.
This is where we're at. They started doing the construction of it. They laid out the base pieces, of course, and then they pre-assembled the bows. And as I mentioned, apparently they didn't have enough bows. There's supposed to be 8, and they only had 5. So they got together what they could and stood those up. So they're on their way right now. They left the trailer here with all the other kits on it, and they are now going to pick up the other pieces, which is apparently an hour and a half away to meet their boss. And their boss is driving an hour and a half. Anyway, so they're going to get the bows and bring them back. The other things they did was they used an auger and a post hole digger to put in these anchor points. And there's probably some adjustment that's going to need to be made, because this side over here is low at the moment. So the center section has to come up. And I know they have that auger right now, have it tied in, bolted into the base. But if that side still needs to come up, which I went and got some blocks for them, that's going to have to get undone and adjusted. The back section, they put one cinder block under the back, and that's fine. You know, you need something to hold all this up. But the other hiccup is these limbs. Previously, I had trimmed off several of these limbs on the lower section of this tree, but after seeing how tall these are and realizing they're in the way, I'm going to have to trim this back. So this gives me a chance right now while they're gone to address this stuff. So my neighbor has offered me his use of his pole saw. So I'm going to use that and trim off these limbs. And there's also other pieces here. Those are the other vertical pieces, and then the roof over there. So hopefully this all gets done and turns out the way I expect it to. But I'm glad that I decided to let somebody else do this, because I did not want to even consider climbing up there to put on the sheet metal. So we'll see what happens. I'll get these limbs out of the way and move on from there.
So I'm setting up my ladder on this, I think it's an oak tree, and these limbs have grown out, and that's what they're going to do. There's been limbs growing on over the top of my garage, and the barn I had actually sat more in line with where the carport is now. I did a video previously where I had my neighbor use his bobcat, and we moved the barn over to make room for this RV cover. So using this pole saw, it made it really easy. I don't know if I've not used one of these before, and this is a Ryobi brand, and apparently you can make it longer or shorter, and it's an electrical connection inside of the extension pieces. So really simple to hook up and use. And I'm just being careful as I go up on this ladder. You know, you're trying not to get caught up in anything. Now this limb, it got hung on top of that bow, so I had to like cut it twice to get it loose, and then knocked off these other pieces that are just little pieces that are still in the way. I didn't want to take that whole limb off, but I wanted to get rid of as much as I could. So I may have to get one of these pole saws one day, but if my neighbor lets me use it, that's all the better. So dragging off these limbs, simple thing. You know, there's always more to do in your yard, right? And I just get these out of the way for them. And as I'm doing this, I also wanted to double check and see just how tall these were. So I used the ladder and pushed it up to where it just about touched the center section of that bow to realize that it's at 14 feet, which I discussed later. So they went and got the bow pieces and assembled these the other three legs that they needed to do. Now, I was watching how they did this, and it was interesting as they're setting up their equipment and their ladders and everything. They're going to run a string around the perimeter of the whole assembly. And I was trying to figure out what they were doing exactly. I don't know where they get their measurements from or what they're using, because basically they just stretched this string, pulled it tight, and they must have had some measurements on the legs at some point. Earlier on when we were talking about it, they had done some measuring and put some marks. And I think that's what they're using at this point. So he gets this string really tight, and he goes around and puts levels, little bubble levels, hangs them on the string. And I think he's just trying to make sure that everything is level. So once they had established the string and the levels, then they started adjusting this back leg. And you can see he's trying to lift up that leg assembly, and they've got this string on a mark on that leg. So he's leveling up that particular string and that line on the side. Here they're adjusting the front section, and they're trying to get the front bow assembly level from side to side. So they went around adjusting with the hammer and knocking things up and down, or I should say down a little here and there. And once they get that established, then they're using some leverage and raising up the next leg. So this long section is 35-foot leg base plate. It'll move quite a bit, but you have to have support under it. If you were on perfectly level ground, it wouldn't be a big deal. So they continue to make these adjustments and raise up that side so that everything follows or gets in line with the levels and that string. I know that they're going to make some adjustments later on, because they can only do so much with the base plate piece, and there you can see it moved quite a bit when he was lifting on it. They can only do so much with that base plate piece, and then they fine tune where the leg pieces are on the base plate. So there you can see quite a shift. You push up on that center section and it moved everything kind of forward. So he's going around and hitting the rebar and making sure that nothing's going to move away from where they have it at this point. And once he gets that established, they start adjusting the height on these legs. So they're wiggling this around a little bit to get some play in those pieces, and then they raise or lower them according to where they want them and add some screws to hold them in place. The cross bracing also, here I'm giving them some water because they're working pretty hard. They need some water, but they have these strut bracing also holding up in the middle and the end. You can see the angle bracing. So here he is adjusting this height. He looks at where the line is on the side and makes whatever adjustment he needs to do, as far as bringing it up. And the other one puts in the screws so it all stays in place. They were a great team. They knew exactly what they were doing and what they needed to do. And this front leg, he is getting it set and is using a level on each side. And he's going to extend this ladder up here because I think the next sequence is trying to get the metal up on the roof as soon as they can. Now, he's adjusting things, and I know that he's checking the levels. And I don't know if the strut braces at the top were fully anchored, if that made any difference or not. But I can see him putting these the screws in, and there he's adjusting that one forward as well. Moving the ladders around, getting them set. I think they're going to get the back section in place and get the levels in place as well to make sure that everything's right. And the strut piece that goes down to the corner, you can see him in the far section there. He's screwing that in to get that right. And there's probably a lot of play in these pieces. Whenever you think about it, these are pretty long. The legs themselves are 12 feet. And so any kind of movement that you can push or pull or wiggle, whatever, it's going to make a difference in getting this lined up. So at this point, they are preparing to put the roof on, but we run into another problem.
Well, this is taking a lot longer than I had anticipated. They came back with the 3 bows that they needed to build these legs. They got everything leveled up, and it was interesting to watch that sequence, but it looks good. I mean, all the spans are the same height by the looks of it, and they appear to be, at least for the most part, on plane with each other. So no complaints there. And I did, you probably saw in my little time lapse, I extended my ladder up and it fit underneath the rib there in the center, and it was 14 feet. So this is a 12-foot kit, but it is 14 feet in the center. So just keep that in mind. I did want that height. I wanted to be able to get on top of this camper, and if I needed to fix something, I would be able to move around up there. So the next dilemma, these poor guys, this company, and I'll say this, this is through Allen's factory outlet, and I expected things to be a lot better and go a lot quicker than they ever did, and it's no fault on the installers. I think these are the parts are all from Carolina carports, so you're going through Allen's factory outlet, Carolina carports for the parts, and they had all these kits here. So there's supposed to be 7 construction pieces, 7 buildings here. And these guys, I don't blame the installers for most of it, because there's only so much they can do. So they went and they were going to put the roof on. Index hex washer head with CCI head, blah blah blah. They opened up this brand new box, and not one of them has a washer on it. So I can't blame them, because you're not going to open up a box. You're going to take that box and say, oh great, that's what I need, here I go. And yet that's wrong.
So they are now at either Lowe's or Home Depot getting more screws. So I hate it for them. You know, it would, if things had been everything loaded on the trailer properly, somebody had double checked, you know, some of this stuff, they would have been done long ago. As it is, you know, they had to drive over an hour and a half to get these 3 bows, because that was the halfway point to meet the boss, I guess. It is what it is. Hopefully they can get this done yet. There's still, you know, quite a few hours left in the day, and I was hoping this would be done already. So we'll get another look at it when it's all put together, and, you know, hopefully it goes well. So as it turns out, Lowe's, Home Depot, Ace Hardware, Tractor Supply, nobody had the screws that would have allowed them to finish that job on that day. So this is 3 days later, and they're getting set up to put the sheet metal on the roof. And I thought this was just interesting to watch, because this is a panel that is over 35 feet long. So I know from my experience of what I've done, I know I could do what they're doing, but I don't have the equipment. Just getting a couple of these ladders alone would be quite the expense, and I can't justify that at all just for this purpose. And I don't even know, I guess you could rent those, I don't even know. But as they put this up here, they set some screws in the bow pieces so that this piece of metal would not slide off, and then they adjusted from there. So they got it centered up and figured out how much of an overhang they wanted to have. And I was really kind of surprised. I did not watch them doing this. I just had the camera set up, and I wasn't sure how they were going to do it. So as he gets these couple of screws in the front bow or front section, he just climbs up there and scurries to the back. And I was like, oh, okay. I didn't know how strong this metal was. I know it's got ribs in it, so it does have strength, obviously. But he's done this many times before. So while he was up there, he was adjusting the helper was adjusting the legs to get them square or vertical, let's say, level. And the guy on top was pushing the legs left and right to get them centered in the corrugated metal. So you think in your mind, how do you do this? Well, he was actually pushing, and you could see the bow or the leg moving kind of side to side. So once they got it centered up, then it was just a matter of repeating the process over and over until they had all of these in the right location and screwed down as needed. So he continues to do this. He gets everything set, and he can, you know, just repeats it over and over till everything is in the right spot. So it was fun to watch, at least on the video. That I didn't see it in person, but it was just I didn't want to be up there. So he gets this last one screwed in, and then they repeat the process with the other panels. So they actually lift the panel and they put it on top of their heads and then bow it, and that keeps it from collapsing in the middle. And then they climb up the ladder, and then what I found was they had trimmed a corner off of the front edge, and what that did is it allowed the front corner to slide under the first rib on the top piece. So instead of having a straight corner going in, it was kind of curved, and it helped it slide together. So they start setting all the screws and getting things in place, and repeat it over again. Now, once they get this up, they don't have all the screws in place. They just have enough to hold it and keep it up there. And I know that at some point here, I don't know if it was this sequence or not, but the leader asked me to come over and help with securing the ladder, because the younger guy, the ladder kept moving. But I also helped them set the length, because they were in the first piece they set the length, and then he was checking it, and then I helped them get the length in the right spot for this last piece. And so as he's resetting everything and getting screws in place. Once he does this, he just kind of jumps up there like Spider-Man and goes to town running screws into all of these panels. So they finish up this side. You see him, going up on a ladder and taking care of the overlap, or the finished edge, let's say, of this panel. Now later on, what I'll probably do is come back and add panels. So I may end up taking those screws loose, but they have to finish the job, so that's what they do. I know here they're talking about how they're going to do this, and they had ladders on the outside, and they realized, let's put them on the inside so that it just makes it easier. Now they get the next panel and get it up on the top of the roof here. Same sequence, climb the ladders and get everything in place. And I don't know what these panels weigh exactly. I know I did a video where I put some of these up. Here I am helping him because they were worried about the ladder tipping over. But I know I put some of these panels up on another RV cover, but I didn't do the roof. I did it on the side. And basically me and one other guy were able to do it like they're doing it, but it's still an awkward piece to handle. You can easily probably bend it or get it out of shape. Here they're working it underneath that edge, and once they get it, they're trying to get this in, and I went off to get like a broom handle. I was gonna climb up on the ladder and push up on it, but they didn't need my help. They ended up getting it. So they get this one in place, and they're getting the last panel up, and this one I end up kind of helping, I guess. I think they normally have 3 people on their crews, but with just 2 of them, it's a little more risky. So they end up getting that panel up in place, and I was trying to assist them where I could. There's only so much I can do as the homeowner, let's say. But I was trying to use this broom handle. I was going to push up on the panel, and then I ended up just climbing the ladder and helping them try to get it in underneath that last section there of the previous piece. So he gets it in place. I get out of the way, as I should. I don't need to be in their way. And then they work on getting the screws in place and finishing out the top piece. Now, the other thing that has to happen is the trim. So once they get all of this in place, they're going to put the trim pieces on the front and the back. And I think he was, the leader was trying to teach the younger guy some of these techniques, because it took him a little while to get this in place. And I think he was explaining to them, or to him, what you do and how you do it. So they run the screws in the top, and the young guy gets the main piece up, and the leader goes back to finishing out the screws and the bracing on the side. Now, I was surprised they pulled out a leaf blower. I don't know what the point is, but they blew off the top of this thing. I figured there's nothing up there that's going to cause any problems. It's just new metal anyway, so that's fine with me. And then once he gets this cut and gets it angled the way he wants, he cuts off that lower piece and runs the screws in, and that takes care of the trim. And I know that later on I may consider putting in a gable end, but it's going to go against the face of the leg if I do it. So I'm not going to worry about anything with the overhang at this point. It doesn't make any difference. So they finish up the back section, and he's taking and digging over there like to set the last auger. I think they wanted it a little bit deeper, and so he's resetting everything by using the post hole digger and getting it out, while the leader is taking down the ladders and putting those away. They did a pretty good job of cleanup. I did find some pieces of metal where they had cut the ends off of the roof pieces. Not a big deal. I'm just glad I found them before I hit them with a mower. And I did find a few screws laying here and there, which I picked up as well, because obviously I don't want to get a hole in the tires of my RV. So there it is. Now, I will say I had to wait a long time for this. This has taken about 100 days from when I ordered it and made a deposit until it actually got installed. And I don't blame the installers. You know, the company could probably be run better. I ordered this through Allen's Factory Outlet, and then the manufacturer is Carolina Carports. So somehow you get, you know, multiple groups of people involved, and then it becomes complicated. They did trim out the front section in white, and the top is Galvalume, which looks like aluminum. And I wanted something that wouldn't absorb heat so much, so that's why I went with that. Now this span it's 12 feet on the outside, so pay attention to that if you're looking at getting one of these. I had assumed it was 12 feet on the inside, but I guess it makes sense to be on the outside. Each one of these openings is 5 feet, and the top section, as I pointed out earlier, is 14 feet in the center. Now what I plan to do on my own is close in I want to close in the back. At least that's what I'm planning to do. I may change my mind on that. And on that side, I'm going to put at least 2 panels to help block off the sun. And on this side, I may put at least 1 panel, and I may do a second panel, but push it up higher. So instead of being at 6 feet, it would be at 5 feet, because you can overlap these things with that shape. So I managed to get 2 extra sticks of 20-foot square tubing to close in the back. What they recommended that I do is run a 12-foot piece across the center and 2 verticals at what should be about 14 feet, but it'll be a little bit off center, so probably 13.5 or something like that. So I have the 2 sticks that I can cut up on my own, and then I also got a 2 packages of screws and some angle brackets to make all this happen. I had suggested to them that I might weld it, and he said use the brackets, it'll make it easier. So at this point, what I want to do is get the RV in here. You know, like I said, I've been waiting so long, and this has been exposed to the weather for so long that it just needs to be inside of this. So let me set up the camera and see if I can't back this in here. And suddenly it doesn't look so big. But that's perfect. I wanted to have enough room that I could get up on top if I need to do any maintenance up there, and there's plenty of room now, so that's fantastic, and it's going to work. Just need to get those sides closed in later, and it'll be great. So that'll be it for this video. I would have liked to have done something like this myself, but I know with knee problems and back problems and lack of help, this would have been more difficult than I would have wanted it to be. So I'm happy to spend, the money to get this done. Obviously, you can look into the cost, breakdown. Is it worth it to just have the framework done like this, or is it worth it to have all the extra stuff done? That's up to you, but this is about as cheap as I could go to make this happen. I think the total cost was about $3,100, and that's labor and materials and installed, of course. I did look at other companies like Versatube, And you can get the full kit, but you got to put it up yourself. And I knew I just didn't want to do that. So there'll be more to come later, I'm sure. But once again, thanks for watching. And until next time, take care of yourselves. See ya.